Welcome to Pixel Theater, everyone. My name is Nick, Noel, and I am just one of your hosts. And as always, I am joined by my illustrious co-host.
Thankfully, my parents didn't name me Ron, or I could be Ron Nick, or Mario. We'll get into that, but I'm Ron. Hi.
Hey. And today we are joined by a very special guest, another one of my friends, Mr. Matt Giles.
Hello.
Welcome
Matt,
aboard.
Who are you? What do you do? Why are you here?
I do too many things, none of them very well, but I occasionally write television reviews and sometimes movie reviews for the spoiler-free Movie Sleuth. Formerly worked at PBS, Detroit Public Television, WDIV, and currently work for Prime Research, where I analyze trends and media forecasts for both the NFL and Viacom, which sounds way cooler than it is. Or maybe it doesn't. Maybe it sounds
I think
cool
it sounds really cool.
Yeah.
Let's just pretend it's really cool.
I say you're in the right place. We're impressed by that stuff.
Yeah, there we go.
That's my resume. Anyone looking to hire me? Come on, just bring me
love
on.
it.
I don't remember what Viacom does, but the only thing I remember about them is their like logo that they may not even use anymore from like 1997, where it's just like this weird, like, I don't know, like logo comes up and it's just like Viacom. Like,
Yeah, that's
just
what
fade to black.
I didn't even. I thought that was because I
So
saw that at the end of all the classic Twilight Zones. So
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there we go.
yeah, and, our producer is right. It's funny. I'm working for the MTV Entertainment Group section of Viacom. So, for instance, they're interested in their CBS All Access becoming Paramount Plus and all the shows that they track on Paramount Plus in the MTV Entertainment section, which includes MTV, VH1, Comedy Central, etc. So,
well, I won't get you in too much trouble, so I'll just briefly say Paramount Plus sucks, and we'll move on.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's who we are. And what is it we do? This is Pixel Theater. It is a podcast. It is a YouTube series. And it is a special donut that you can only make once a week. It's because it's too high in cholesterol. Or if you have it any more than that, you risk heart attack. Just so everybody knows.
Okay.
And what do we talk about on this here show? Well, dear listener, we talk about film adaptations of video games because they're fun and they're silly. And I really enjoy talking about the translation from one medium to another, and often the issues that arise when that occurs. And on today's episode, we have probably the first and maybe most famous, beautiful disaster that is a video game adaptation, because we are talking about the 1993, right? Live action version of the Super Mario Brothers, starring Bob Hoskins, John Leguizamo, and Dennis Hopper, right? That's Good. It's a very star-studded cast, and I do not understand why.
You can't forget a special appearance by Lance Henriksen, too.
Lance Henriksen.
How did they get him in this
Fiona
movie?
Shaw.
Yeah.
Mojo Nixon is in this. So we are going to talk about that movie. We are going to talk about the games. But first, we're going to jump right into the lobby and just kind of, chat about whatever.
Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby. Let's all go to the lobby to get ourselves a treat.
So Matthew, Mr. Matt Giles, I can't remember your middle name. Matt Cynthia Giles.
Yep.
What's
First try.
What have you
Nailed
been
it.
up to? What have you been doing with your life?
Ordering far too many books from independent bookstores, both locally and nationally, because I just love a never-ending to read pile. But also, the one thing that this pandemic has done for me is I really took for granted being able to go into bookstores and browse, and some of them have reopened a little bit, but primarily that's been my thing of how can I donate or buy from or support any of the independent bookstores. But other than that, just mainly one of my analysts said it best of like, heading out for the day at the end of their shift, and then they were like in parentheses, and by heading out I mean getting up from one chair in front of a screen and into another room on another chair in front of another screen. And I'm like, yeah, that's about right. That's every day pretty much.
What have you enjoyed any of the books, or are you a person who just buys a bunch of books and then doesn't read them?
No, it's a mix of both. I have a bunch. I mean, the amount of books that I have to read right now is insane. It'll probably, take me a long time to get through. But yes, I've enjoyed reading the books that I've read thus far. I'm in my friend Kyle started this like unofficial book club with my other friend Monique, mainly as a way of like, he just wanted to get more books from people. But we've kind of, even though it's just the three of us, I don't know, for me, it's kind of fun because we each take, a month, like a normal book club. We one of us picks the book for said month, but each of us ends up buying the book for the other two people. And we committed kind of, at the start of it, which was, I think in October, buying from our favorite, like local independent bookstores. So, that's how we did that. So they pick one and then send it to me, and then I do the same for them, and, so on and so forth. So
what was the last book you read?
The last one that I read was Love by
this is
Roddy
where it all
Doyle.
breaks down. What is it?
No.
I mean, I've read
Doyle.
books. It was a dictionary. I read the whole thing.
Yeah,
No,
I
sorry,
read
I spoke over you. What was it?
Love by Roddy Doyle. He's I picked that one for March because I try and be festive. So I picked a like a horror Christmas book for December, and then for March it was my turn again. So I picked a book by an Irish writer that I'd been interested in for a while. But it's basically about two old friends who get together in a Dublin pub and kind of just are in conversation with one another, talking about, everything that's happened since the last time they saw each other, their life regrets, so on and so forth.
So pretty similar to the Super Mario Brothers movie then.
Yeah,
so that's good.
Exactly. It's weird because in the book it's Bob Hoskins and John Leguizamo. So I was just like, wow.
I was going to say.
So specific.
Never say I don't do my research for these types of podcasts.
Like it imagines a fantastical scenario where an aged Bob Hoskins meets a mild-mannered John Leguizamo, and they share a meal together.
It was actually their origin story, how they became brothers. That's pretty much it. Yeah.
My dinner with Mario.
Also, Dennis Hopper was there.
Yeah.
Ron, what about you? What have you been doing?
Nothing.
Good. Moving on.
No, I got what have I been doing? Eagerly awaiting something that'll be an episode of our show, I think, because Mortal Kombat will be coming out soon.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of misses as far as like blockbusters at home. I was not impressed with King Kong. Just a lot of the
Kong versus Godzilla.
Kong versus Godzilla. Yeah. That it does not even deserve recognition of the title. Not that I expected much from that, but it was really disappointing. But Mortal Kombat, by all accounts, looks very fun. So I'm looking forward to it.
It does look fun. I'm actually legitimately excited about it.
Me too.
I love weird movies. What do you think makes less sense that they're a combination? Kong versus Godzilla or Alien versus Predator?
Kong versus Godzilla, if they're going to do it the way that the screenplay demonstrated. At least Alien versus Predator has this kind of, it was always thrown in as a prop nod in Predator 2, like, oh, hey, we own the rights to this, throw an alien head in there. But I think the comic books took it and ran with it. Then there was a young adult like science fiction series by S.D. Perry that did a really good job of like showing the colonial Marines and the culture of predators and how they incorporate the hunt for aliens into their lifestyle. And it was really cool. The movies are an abomination. So they're just as bad. I guess sticking with the films, Kong actually makes more sense because the movies just contradict the hell out of themselves. Like Lance Henriksen and the whole Wayland Yutani thing, and it's actually on Earth, even though the movie said this didn't happen. Like, I don't know.
Yeah,
it's all a muddled mess, but
it is a bit of a muddled mess.
Yeah.
Well, I know we're running low on time, so I'll just briefly say I've been reading this series called it's the Lightbringer series. It's by Brent Weeks, and I love it because it uses a very, at least to me, unique magic system where it's all based on colors. So you can like the wizards in it can like draw color from like sunlight, or if they can see it, they can like draw on its power. It's weird, and each different color has like different properties. So like red is like flammable and kind of liquid, whereas like blue and green are like more harder and have like more like building materials, and they just make weird fantastical objects or use them to like make weapons and stuff like that. So I don't know, it's just been a really fun series. It's silly, but Brent Weeks is one of my favorite authors, just because he writes really kind of quick like magic adventure stories. So it's good times.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, if you knew how to read, I'm sure you'd like it.
Not enough pictures, but I'll take your word for it.
All right, everybody, we're moving on to our next segment. We are going to talk about, the Super Mario Brothers game. It's a game, right? They've made at least one or two, I think.
A couple of them, yeah.
Yeah, at least. So we're going to talk about that in our next section, the arcade. Okay, so Super Mario Brothers, a seminal franchise, one of the greatest video game creations of all time. Matt Giles, have you ever heard of it?
No, never. I've obviously I've heard of it. I played Super Mario 64 was my kind of entrance into it when I was a young kid. I had Sega Genesis and played Sonic, so I didn't have the early, Mario games and stuff like that. I've since seen them and been around friends when they're playing them. But Mario 64 will be.
I'm sorry, I take issue with the idea that you have friends. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there it is. There it is. What was the time on that before I got insulted? It was
Okay.
Just instantly
Sorry.
into the next segment. But no,
In case anybody is wondering, we've only been recording technically for 13 minutes, and Nick has roasted each and every one of you at least 3 times.
It's not. I'll tone it down. I'm sorry.
It's
I'm
all
sorry.
me. It happens. I spark. I'm the spark that ignites the flame. It's just yeah.
I wish it wasn't true, but I'm like legitimately a different person when I'm around Matt Giles.
Like I said, I just want to be Ron's friend. I think Ron and I think we've connected in a way here. So
You're bonding. It's fine.
yeah, exactly. But yes,
Under
Mario
your shared
64,
disdain for me.
Mario 64 is and will always be. That's kind of like my favorite game. Like even all the Mario games that have come out since, I'm like, I just want Mario 64 again. My only complaint about it was that you couldn't play as Luigi. But I know that I think there was a version of it that came out for like the DS where
The DS you could, yeah.
So like that's the only imperfection to me in Mario 64 is that you couldn't play as Luigi, but I digress.
It's crazy looking at the state of games and technology. Like, I mean, things are damn near photorealistic now. But I remember my first experience with Mario 64 was seeing the kiosk they'd set up at Toys R Us. And that was the coolest thing I'd ever seen in my life, because I grew up from we don't have time for me to go into like my history with Mario as far as from I grew up in the islands and didn't care about video game systems. We had an Atari. The kids would play Nintendo. I had no interest in it. And it wasn't until I moved to the States and got Mario for Christmas. This was 89.
And discovered winter.
Oh, well, yeah. So being in the house and freezing means you played a lot of Mario. So I have a very fond history of all the Mario titles on the NES, but Mario 64 is a penultimate kind of next step, literally, in the just 3D technology. I mean, we'd never really seen games like that. Yeah, sure, we had Virtua Fighter and things like that, but Mario 64 was really one of a kind. I just was impressed by the water in that game.
Yeah,
it was very pretty. I really enjoed it.
I still get the music stuck in my head from that game too. Like the first like Babam level or whatever, like the only one that you can go into, that like that is still like in my head, like always, which is sad, but
yeah, like I'm trying to think of like moments where like that really hit me with games, and I think the the one that really stands out is like the first time seeing like Mario 64 and like being able to go like a full 3D environment and run around and like and see like that whole world. I was just like, it's never going to get better than this. And I don't think it did. Honestly, I'm not sure if it ever got better.
Well, I just can't think of another time except for maybe when Resident Evil 4 came out where I felt like I was looking at a generational change, you know, like you played Super Mario World for the first time and it was so colorful. It looked like a cartoon, you know, going from 8-bit to 16-bit had a fidelity that was like, wow, look how colorful this is. But then going to Mario 64 was like, this is a whole new style of video games to play. And then it just all kind of, I mean, Mario Sunshine was fine, but there's nothing really about the GameCube that was that much different than N64, except for, you know, higher quality, you know, mini DVDs instead of cartridges. And but that style of 3D platformer never really evolved past what Mario 64 established as far as just refining the controls.
Can I ask, like, Nintendo's like the Apple of video games. They're just fucking with us, right? There's no reason why they couldn't have just stuck with CDs or DVDs like every other console did.
Well, I mean, if they weren't so adamant about cartridge, we wouldn't have PlayStation as a format. Like they partnered with Sony for the Nintendo PlayStation, and it was a disc-based system. And there was just this kind of argument. Nintendo wanted to stay with cartridges for Final Fantasy VII. Sony disagreed, and that's where the kind of splitting off started because they were being real pig-headed about where cartridges could be and stay. And I mean, yeah, you just had a limitation as far as music quality. I think there was the streaming 3D that you could achieve with the PlayStation was only possible because of optically streaming from a disc. But the N64, like a cartridge, had instantaneous load times. And I think that's what Nintendo was looking at, was like, this is geared toward children. You can flip the switch and the system is there and you're playing. Whereas Sony was looking at, like, no, with CD, you get, you know, Hollywood quality sound fidelity, and you've got more options for higher quality 3D streaming, I guess. So,
I mean, I guess the only thing that I imagine they're using just really high capacity discs right now, but I don't think they're still going like 750 megabytes. That's all you get.
No, they don't use discs at all now. It's weird. It's just archaic fallback, but nothing. The PS5 or Xbox don't stream anything off the discs. It's just purely to show that you own the system.
Yeah, that's
They're
so
just
true.
installing packets now.
I completely forgot how things work. It's just basically you're not buying a game, you're buying a key.
You buy
and
a
then
key.
that key will give you the game. No, that's such a good point.
You buy Call of Duty, it takes up like 150 gigs on your hard drive. Like I got a PS5 and I was so excited about it, and I can install like 5 games. you're kind of SOL.
I was just thinking because like with each iteration of Nintendo, like they have a different style of cartridge or whatever that you have to use, and just like that's just, I don't know.
The Switch was the first one that came in flavors because there's a coating on that so you don't eat it. So if you look at Switch cartridge, it tastes terrible. So I don't recommend you do it.
Did not know that. Is that to discourage children because they're so small?
Sure.
Okay.
Did either of you ever do in Mario 64? I mean, I know it's not like a trade secret now or anything like that, but like, you know, the whole, if you get, what was it, like all 120 stars, which there were like, you know, the hidden stars in every level, you'd get like, you'd unlock that grate out in front of the castle, blast on top of it, and then get 100 lives to play the game over and over again from Yoshi.
See, I think I did that, but I was in my like 20s. Like, I don't think I came near getting anywhere near that many stars like when it originally came out.
The whole thing was
didn't and haven't.
Yeah, the whole thing was like for every level that you play, you can get an extra, like they give you like the 6 stars or whatever, like, you know, how the levels kind of load or whatever. But there was like a hidden one where if you got 100 coins in every level, then it gives you another star. So it's basically like you get a 7th star like through all the levels, and then you can get 120 like total stars, and that's what opens that grate. But that was just kind of one of those like things, like once you've beaten the game, like, oh, how do I, you know, do this all over again? And it's like, oh, there's your answer.
I did kind of similar in that vein. So I played, when I got the Switch, I played, the first game I played was Super Mario World, you know, where you got like the little hat and stuff. And like, I had thought I was gonna beat the game. Like I'd gotten through, I'd like fought Bowser. I was on the moon. It took me forever because I like didn't know. Super Mario Odyssey. Yes, not World. I don't know what I was thinking. And
I wasn't gonna. Well, actually, I'll see where this is going.
And it took me forever to beat Bowser because I was like there with like half life or something like that and kept starting. But I eventually did it. And I was like, yay, I won. And then you just get dropped back like at the beginning and you're like, hey, there's all this other stuff. Like it's a completely different world now. You can like go again. And I was just like, nope, I beat it. I'm going to be done now.
I had a good time playing that one, but it's still this weird thing where Mario 64 is kind of where it peaked. I mean, Mario Galaxy was fine. Mario Sunshine was fine. I'm glad I got that set on the Switch so I can play them on the Switch, which was a weird timed only release. What I'm upset about was the anniversary thing. Mario 35, you can't play that anymore. That was only this little niche thing, but it was like a free-for-all battle royale where you and 35 other people all played Mario at the same time. I'm bummed that
Did you play as different Marios or the same Mario controlling a different?
You're playing the original
of his
Nintendo game. Like you're just playing through. But if I kill a Koopa or a Goomba, they would fly to someone else's screen. Or if I got like coins, I would send the coins so you could help and hinder everyone else at the same time. It was really cool. It was
that does sound neat, but
yeah,
wow. I can't even understand it.
You have to find gameplay on YouTube now, sadly.
So we're wrapping up on time, but does anybody want to share their first Mario memory? Their MM, if you will?
Honestly, Ron kind of hit it on the head. Like I played Sonic for the most part when I was younger. And then I remember very specifically, like, I think it was somewhere like around like third grade or something like that, but I had done well on my report card and my parents knew how bad I wanted Nintendo 64 because Super Mario was, the launch game for that console. So I had already played it like over at my cousin's house. And I was like, it was one of those things like, this is so cool. Like, I want this, like, I need to have, and so they rewarded me for having a good report card by getting me a Nintendo 64, with Mario on it. So, or with the Mario game. So, that was really kind of like my first real memory of it, other than the movie, which I'm not sure, even as a kid, I might've seen the movie before I actually started playing the game, but yeah.
I have a really upsetting memory so Mario was a big deal that it was a movie, and it was my birthday. And me and all my friends were going to go see the premiere of Mario, and we are going to go to like a 2:00 show. We ended up not being able to go to it, so it was like a 4:00 show. And I remember throwing this temper tantrum about it, like, "No, we're supposed to see Mario now." And it's so funny because I'm 11, and even then I'm like, "Oh, I don't know how I feel about this movie as an 11-year-old, but it's a really embarrassing thought. I mean, I just remember being a real piece of work for my parents because we had to go to a 2-hour later show. That's embarrassing, but yeah.
So I think Mario was probably the first video game I played. I have no memory of asking for a Nintendo at all. It just kind of showed up one day. And then my parents told me they were getting divorced. So I think it was on purpose. So yeah, like I just remember so many times of like, we had our apartment, and there was like a storage closet, and that's where they put this little TV because it was only a 2-bedroom apartment. So it was my mom, my sister, and I. So like if I wanted to go somewhere else, like I had to go in this little storage room with this little TV, and I would just be playing the only game I owned, just over and over and over again, which sounds sad, but was a fun memory for me at the time. Oh god, it's like a little closet boy playing his sad game.
The boy under the stairs and his trials and
I mean, a
tribulations
little
of
bit.
Mario.
I mean, I could come out. I wasn't required to be in there. Oh goodness. All right, everybody.
Mario's great for that, for sure. So I have so many more, but we're out of time. But I mean, Mario taught me how to read. Like I had a lot of educational learning disabilities when we got the Nintendo. and like that those first 3 months before Christmas, couldn't read anything. That we did a lot of eye tracking stuff with me. Nothing was making sense. Got Mario. By March, I was at a 5th grade level. Like, my parents were convinced it was that. Like, I am like, yeah, sure, I like video games, cool. But my mom like encouraged my video game playing immensely because she completely thought it's because of that Mario character tracking him left to right. That's why it's here, go nuts, kid. So
what a complete opposite situation from every other child in the entire world.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's cool.
Well, my parents got me a Nintendo, and then I had to wait for them to play Zelda and Tetris. So it was really for them. I mean, they were probably 30 at the time. So and I look at myself when I was 30 in the games I was playing. I'm like, yeah, I would have done the same thing.
It was Zelda and Tetris.
Yeah. So it was my Nintendo, but I'd have to wait until they were done, and then I
don't think my mom even knew how to turn it on. I don't think she still would know how to do anything.
My dad knew exactly how to hit the Nintendo with the vacuum to reset it and erase my game.
Oh, no.
I don't think he did that on purpose, but it happened a lot.
Did he, though?
Yeah.
All right, everybody, that's going to wrap up this little section. And we're going to move into our third and final segment, the feature presentation. Okay, everyone. I know you've been hotly anticipating us talking about this movie. For us, the second time, but for Matt Giles, the first. Yeah. So, Matt, you're the guest. Why don't you have your opening salvo? Tell us what you thought about this movie.
Oh man, I can't wait for you guys so that I can temper my reaction and maybe lie about my opinion of this movie. No, this is kind of like one of those guilty pleasure movies for me. I hadn't seen it since I had the VHS of it, or like rented the VHS, like when video stores were still a thing. So it's got to be like over 20 years since I've seen the movie. And I got the Blu-ray from a friend of mine. He had actually the Blu-ray is only available in the UK, so he had burned a copy of it. And it looked really good on
Don't tell the FBI, Matt.
Yeah, it looked really good on the burned copy, and it came with a documentary that was done in like 2014 or 2015 about the making of the movie. It's really good. Like John Leguizamo, Lance Henriksen, other actors from it are all interviewed and talk about what a shit show it was. But for the movie itself, I really enjoyed it. I mean, it is a mess. And watching that documentary first is kind of how I did it. I watched that and then watched the movie, so I kind of knew some things going into it. But no, I saw kind of all the flaws and everything going into it. But there's still just kind of like a love for that movie. Of like, it hit me right at the right age of like, I don't know what this is, but it's kind of fun.
Matt, I'm really surprised because our setup for this started off a little spicy between you and Nick, and I thought, oh, this is going to be interesting because I think Nick and I were both really surprised that was also our reaction too. This was this was the first out of the gate when we started this series of like, all right, let's watch movies. Let's start with the worst. Oh boy. And we both started it like, oh my God, I kind of had fun watching that. Yeah. Like it's very much a guilty pleasure. And I was a little more sober this time revisiting it than I was last time. Just as far as the pandemic had just started, there was this weird fever dream nature to like, I don't know. I just remember, no, we started it before the pandemic.
We did start it before. We've been doing this so much longer than we think we have.
Yeah, the world made sense at that point. So maybe I can't blame that. I just know
the greatest president of all time was still the president instead of being secret president.
Right. But it was just fun. I don't know. Like I had such low expectations, I guess. I didn't know what to expect, and I didn't have the luxury of the Blu-ray copy because like you said, that wasn't available here. But I do put it up there with like the first Ninja Turtles where it starts, and on my modern display, I'm like, oh my God, this looks better than it should. Like, the detail on their plumbing van jumped out at me for some reason when he's like, Mario, you got to go right instead of left, even though that doesn't make sense. But yeah, we're that faster. But like that whole scene, I'm like, wow, this looks like a movie. It's kind of interesting. And, they have chemistry. It's not Mario and Luigi, but Bob and John are kind of doing their own thing. And it's paced well. I don't know what to say. Well, I don't even know what to say paced well, but at no point am I mad. Like Double Dragon feels like longer than the Lord of the Rings. You know what I mean? And when I look at Double Dragon, I go back and look at Mario. I'm like, oh my God, thank God we're watching Mario. It's a weird movie. It's this bizarre fever dream of Blade Runner and like the little local gathering places and Total Recall. You know, it's just like it's some weird world where it's not quite as good as either of those. Why is Dennis Hopper in this? You know, but I don't know. It's
John Leguizamo. John Leguizamo, you can kind of understand. He was young.
Oh yeah, he was young.
Money.
Yeah, and
Bob Hoskins and Dennis Hopper. I mean, I know it's the anecdote is that they just either one of them or both of them wanted to do something that their like son was into or something like that.
Sure.
But these are both Academy Award nominated gentlemen. I don't understand.
I try to put myself into what would this movie have been like with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito, because that was part of the vehicle pitch for them before Twins, right? Was okay, we got Mario for you, or we got this Twins movie. But at one point, they were both attached. Like I know that
was Arnold Schwarzenegger supposed to be Luigi, or was he going to be Koopa?
God. No, that would have been so much better. Are you kidding me? No, he was going to be Koopa.
You know what's interesting is I think Bob Hoskins is probably the only one in this movie who could play either Mario or Koopa.
He'd be a good Koopa. Well, yeah, I mean, he's such a good, like, slick, you know.
I was thinking about him in, was it Unleashed?
Mafioso,
with Jet Li?
Yeah.
Like him, like as that character.
Gangster, yeah.
That would have been fun.
A good villain.
Sorry,
Matt, what were you saying, though? You were going to talk about Arnold?
Oh no! In the documentary, they said Danny DeVito was who they originally wanted as Mario.
I got to see this documentary.
You could kind of see that, yeah.
Was Arnold ever officially on board?
They didn't say anything about him, but John Leguizamo was actually, like, despite the movie being a shit show, like he admits that him and Bob Hoskins like would get drunk every day before shooting because it was just like a mess. But he talks about the filmmakers in a very favorable light because he said, you know, at the time, like you weren't seeing, you know, Latin American actors like in any kind of lead role, and they were like, and he was like, they gave me a lead role in a movie, so like I'm forever grateful to them.
That's awesome
for that opportunity. And he's like, you didn't see it in movies at the time. And
you know, it's funny at the time. I remember thinking like, wow, these guys they couldn't be any different. But you know, it's funny. The only thing that jumped out at me revisiting it was the age difference. Like Mario could have, you know, Bob Hoskins could have been his dad. You know, that was the only part that was like, these guys are brothers. He's got to be like 25 years older than him. But
and that's the thing. They it's just, I don't know. It's like a weird mix of things that, like, you know, you could make the argument like this doesn't work, but it kind of, because of all of, like the chaos going on, somehow it at least works in a way that like I don't like hate the movie. Like it's definitely a bad movie, but like I kind of have a lot of affection for it. So
so let's go into what's each of yours favorite thing about this movie. You had to pick one thing.
Favorite moment. For me as a kid, I always was waiting for them to look like they, you know, did in the video game. So when they're freezing the pipes, and then he's, you know, Bob Hoskins is like, you know, like Mario's, and then he grabs the stuff out of the locker, and then it cuts to them in the elevator doing their like glug 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 glug. Like that's kind of like my iconic moment. Yeah. Like for the movie is just like, yeah, they're, you know, it's like, I don't know, like seeing Batman wears a bat suit for the first time, or, you know, like just
that's crazy to use that analogy because for me as a kid, I don't know if it had the same effect now, but as a kid, their jump shoes was like the perfect way of explaining how high they could jump, and it reminded me of Michael Keaton's Batman. Every time they would like put the shoes on and bounce, I was like, yeah, that's great.
Which apparently that scene, like in the elevator in the making of documentary, they talk about, like, because basically the movie was supposed to be one thing, and then 10 days before the movie was set to shoot, a new script came in that completely undid everything pre-production had done. And so the new script, I guess, was like dumbed down and kid friendly. And the directors talk about how, like, the elevator scene, there was nothing written other than they enter an elevator. So the whole, like, they called it like the taming of like the snakes, or like when he gets
they're dancing
Goombas to like to sway like that. That was what the directors came up with to give them something to do.
Something
in the
to
elevator.
do.
It was like
hashtag release the Hoskins cut.
Yeah. Yeah. How about you, Nick?
So there's one thing overall I appreciate at this movie is there's just so many people who are so good at their jobs, and you can see it. You know, like the directors. Is it Rocky Morton? Is that his name? And then I can't remember his partner who was his wife at the time. Unfortunately, I'll look it up in a second. But you know, they're these really like kind of like technologically cutting edge kind of directors. They really pushed a lot of the CGI forward with this movie. They created Max Headroom, for instance. Like one of the writers was Ed Solomon, who wrote Men in Black.
Yeah.
You know, like we have already mentioned, you know, John Leguizamo has, you know, at least been nominated for a Tony, I believe. Rocky Morton and Annabelle Jankel, something like that. And you know, Dennis Hopper and Bob Hoskins at various points were nominated for some kind of Academy Award. You know, like there's just so much talent. Even the production designer, I think, he worked on Blade Runner. He was either the production designer or like the creative director or something on Blade Runner.
So you can tell.
So, yeah. So like, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's pretty obvious there, but like, it's just so crazy. There's so much talent in there, and you can kind of see how I would have loved to see like what their like meddled with version would have looked like, rather than the like
every time something's out there like
I don't know if it would have been better. That's what, like, I have no idea. Like I don't know, like this is definitely weird. This is definitely a very weird movie that I appreciate watching. So
one of the screenwriters was interviewed in the documentary, and he actually like according to him, and he was like, you know, of the group of writers, like I was always the one pushing like for more video game references. So he came up with like a whole thing. And you guys can probably speak to this more than I can, but like, you know, how in the video game they would, you know, they'd jump up and hit and the coins would come out. He actually had like drawn a picture of like the phone booths in this world, and how like basically like you'd put you know, coins in, and then they would shoot, your change would shoot out from the top of it. And like I think he came up with like a sequence of like, you know, people would rob those by hitting the bottom of them and getting the coins to come all out. So like he was always trying to do stuff that integrated, you know, video game elements, I guess. But that was again like the original script, and then, you know, the 10 days before the shooting of the movie, a new one came in that basically disregarded all of that.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
I got to see this documentary now, man. That sounds really good.
Yeah, the Rocky Morton talks about like how he had everything so storyboarded because he wanted every detail to be like just completely, so that everyone would know what they were doing. And he said he like was going to bring them like on the set so that like the actors, everyone involved would know like what we're trying to capture, what we're trying to do. And then when that script came out and basically all of his storyboards were useless, he actually admits to going out to the parking lot and ritualistically burning all of his storyboards in a bin or in like a dumpster fire type thing. That's because so it was just sad. Like, well, I got nothing, you know, I got nothing now. So yeah.
Ron, what about you? What would you say is your favorite thing about this movie?
Yeah, you know, it's funny because it's, I guess it, you know, as a kid it was those boots. Now I look at it, at least it embraced it. You know, if we were to cover like what we would change, it would be so fundamentally different than what we have now. You know what I mean? And it's like, there's such a Terry Gilliam nature. If this had worked, that would have been really cool. Not that I think the directors did a bad job, like, but like, you know, you see the storyboards in the last minutes changes and how it changes what they were planning on doing, and whether or not that would have made a better movie. It would have been nice if they could have told the story they wanted to tell. And you know, it's its own thing that, it would have been kind of cool to see it do like a Street Fighter, the movie, the game. Like I'd play a Mario game that looked like this universe, you know? But I don't know, you know, it's, I guess I give it points for trying, and there's nothing cynical about this movie. You know, that's what's kind of cool is it tried to be different. It tried to adapt something that was just a fat little plumber running around, jumping on turtles. You know, how do you make that into a 90-minute feature? And I think it did, I think it did the best it could. I don't know. So I like it for being different, I guess, you know.
I agree with Ron. Like so many of these films, you can kind of feel the contempt that sometimes they have for the source material. And this one is just like, I don't know, they maybe had never played Mario. I don't think they had, but they definitely didn't hate it and like think it was dumb that they were doing this movie. They're like, no, we're gonna do our best. We're gonna see what we can make.
It's like my dad's trying to put on a play of Mario for me at my birthday. Like, well, I don't know what this plumber thing's about, but we're gonna all right, put the costume on, honey. Like, I don't know. Like there was at least a
in the remaining,
I guess.
Yeah, in the remaining couple minutes, do you think if we were going to do this again, what would you think would be an overall approach that would work? Do you think it's possible to do a Mario movie?
Well, Sonic proved to me if they leaned that way, but that's the thing, is it would have to be this Angry Birds-esque thing, not to, diminish, like, but it would have to be this CG movie.
You think so?
Thing. I just the style that Nintendo wants now. That's the only way I think they would ever pull back on the leash of it. I think they had such a bad experience how this movie was perceived in the box office return that they hold those cards too close to their chest. They were going to let a Netflix thing happen with Zelda at one point, weren't they? And even that fell through. Like, so there's stuff with Nintendo, and they're going to do it their own way. And I think they would embrace a CG movie more than anything. And it would be very much like the cutscenes that we already get now. Mario probably wouldn't even talk.
I don't know. I'd still like, I think the last time we did this, we talked about kind of a CG movie where they're still going into another world or something. But I don't know. I think I'd still like to see either a live action where it's just, similar premise, crazy portal, just don't go dark and Blade Runner-y with it. Make it like bright and weird, kind of like the worlds they did with Sonic the Hedgehog. That movie did kind of like change my mind about what a video game movie could look like, where they're just like, yeah, just have it be weird. Don't justify it. It's just weird. It's just super weird. That if they just did that might work. Or this is really stuck with me, is that one episode of The Simpsons where Homer goes into a 3D world. Yes. And then in the Halloween one, then he falls into our world, but he's still a cartoon. Yeah. Like if they did that, but in reverse, where like the plumber falls into like the Mushroom Kingdom and he's still a real person or gets transformed into like a cartoon, which I guess was the Mario TV show where Captain Lou, Lou Abana or something, like goes down a pipe and turns into a cartoon or something. I was really hoping one of you guys would know that guy's last name, but I guess
I don't remember it. I knew it before you brought it up. I'm sorry.
It's okay. But I don't know. I think it's just overall like, don't try and make it real. Just make it weird. Make it even weirder, and you could probably get away with it. Matt, you're going to take us away before we do our ratings. What do you think?
I'm
like nothing.
Biased.
It's a perfect movie.
I'm probably biased from the documentary, but I'd almost say I'd be more curious because you could see like everything about like the look and feel of the movie is like those darker undertones, but then the script was dumbed down because the studio got anxious, and so it's like more kid friendly. But I think like if they had been able to do more of like what they were hoping to do, like leaning into like the dark. I'm not talking like gritty Batman dark kind of stuff, but like what you can kind of see in kind of the overall look and feel of the movie. They leaned more into the darkness that they were kind of exploring there, because they admit that in the making of like there's no real story with Super Mario. Like it's just it's a character running across the screen horizontally, and like there's no story to it, so we could essentially do whatever we wanted. So they were really trying to think of like, how do we bring a plumber into the world of the dinosaurs? And then that's kind of how like the whole prologue, starts, which by the way, I didn't realize until looking at the cast list at the end of it, but the voiceover is Dan Castellano or whatever, Homer from The Simpsons. Yeah. So I didn't realize that. It's the very last credit in the cast list. Like when you're watching the closing credits, I was like, oh, that makes sense. But
so what would you all give this for a rating here? Out of 10 Goombas.
10 Goombas? Oh, go for it, Matt. What would you give it?
I like it more than I probably should. So I think like a 7 or a 7.5 Goombas out of, because I think it's a solid like C movie.
Yeah, that's fair. I was gonna say I'm gonna give it 7 too. One of them's got a harmonica on, but he's trying.
Yeah.
And so yeah, 7.
I'm so close to giving it an 8, but I just don't think that like you can really justify it. And like in my heart, it's an 8, but if I'm being realistic, it's a 7. 7.5. Nah, I don't know. It's weird that 8 doesn't seem too high, but 7.5 does.
But again, you look at the
this is why I'm bad with money
over our like next 8 episodes that we did the initial run, because we were both so surprised at how much we liked this, and it was like, oh god, this movie's really bad because Mario was at least fun. Like I just like Double Dragon, I might have been a little more open to, but I was like, oh, this movie's a bummer. Like it
is a bummer.
Did not enjoy that after watching Mario and Mortal Kombat.
I just want to say too, real quick, the 2 Dennis Hopper deliveries that I love most in this movie are his line reading of just plumbers, like when they first tell him that the plumbers took it, and he's just like, plumbers. And then the other thing that I kept saying through the whole movie, like the one thing that I remembered from childhood, was his saying, monkeys, monkeys. Like, so that
pretty good Dennis Hopper.
That was a good Dennis Hopper. I like it.
Yeah, those two line deliveries are perfect to me.
Oh god, I'm gonna sneak it. Mine's shoot, I'm gonna get it wrong now though. But his line about mud is very Anakin Sand.
Oh yeah,
he's like, I love mud because it's dirty and clean at the same time, or something like that. So good.
The only Dennis Hopper really does not get enough credit for in this movie. I don't know. I just love when it's just like, I'm being paid to do a job, I'm going to do my best. And like, regardless of how silly it is, because there's sometimes where you're watching Dennis Hopper and he's got his arms up like this, like a dinosaur would.
He's
like this is his natural way of walking because he's playing a dinosaur man. Like how much thought he was just like,
why
this is probably how a dinosaur guy would walk. Like,
that's why you get Dennis Hopper, man. That's why the check gets cut.
It's the method. You dive down into the character. You really live it. You
think a Baldwin would have done that for you? No way.
No. Baldwin's sleeping through this, any of them, literally any of them. You think Steven would be happy for the work? No, he's sleeping through it. Okay, everybody, that's going to wrap up this review with one small dig at Stephen Baldwin for some reason. That's also going to wrap up our show. We hope you've enjoyed it. We know we've enjoyed it. Maybe we'll just always do Super Mario. We'll just do like every couple months we'll just come back and do Super Mario Brothers.
Gift that keeps on giving.
There was this one podcast, I think it was called The Worst Idea Ever, but I may be messing up the title. But oh goodness, now I can't remember the movie. Oh shoot, this whole thing's falling apart. But basically the idea was that they watched, I think, Grown Ups 2 every day for a year.
Oh, Jesus.
And they did a podcast about that, like every single time. I could be wrong. Anyway, so that's going to wrap up this episode. If you've liked it, rate, review, subscribe. You can find us on any of your podcast catchers. We're on Apple Podcasts. We're on Google. We're on Spotify. We're all over the place. Tell your friends, tell your best friend especially, because then it can be a secret that only you two share. Thank you for listening. We'll see you back here next time. Have a fantastic day and a brilliant tomorrow.
This is a technical difficulties production.